Well, good evening. I am Tamara L. Welcome to another episode of Just Another Messenger. Now, each episode, we're going to dive deep into the past, examining the philosophies, systems, and the decisions that continue to influence our world today. Now, by connecting the historical content to contemporary issues, we aim to spark thought provoking conversations and encourage a deeper understanding of how history impacts our current events, our culture, as well as our society norms with a little bit of humor on the side. Now, this part doesn't cost you anything. So just don't forget to click the subscribe button, share, and hit that like button to be a part of the conversation you wouldn't want to miss. Now, we just got back from having a wonderful Thanksgiving meal, enjoying our loved ones that traveled near and far to be with one another. And, some of us probably gained about 3 to 5 pounds or something of that nature. And then on Sunday, Monday, it's like morning yarning, back to work, and then bam, something else happens. What is going on? What is going on? What is going on in this world? We get this wonderful news that our current president, Joe Biden, pardoned his son, Hunter Biden. And all this week, America has been in a uproar over that information. I've heard quite a bit of different takes on the subject matter. Some say, if it was my son and I had the stroke of the pen, I would have done the same thing. And you had some people saying it's an abuse of power and things of that nature. So we deal with this, our society, and especially as I'm just going to use the nomenclature of Black and Brown people, deals with the injustice every day. Been dealing with the injustice that continue to plague us every day. And they say, oh, you guys, this is a free country. We live better than most, than our enslaved ancestors. We should be at a better level of understanding. And, life is not that bad. Well, life can be better. And we're going to look at that. We're going to look at those ways of to continue to make the world that we live in a better place. So let's look at how some of these things that we talked about, we're going to look into the past historical events that has shaped this today's current event that's going on right today with the Hunter Biden and Joe Biden situation, and see how they utilize this information to continue to create that separation of divide. So let's get into that. We're going to add our presentation to the board today. So let me see here. Also, let's do this as well before we get started. Now, I'm going to please, if you'd like to support the channel, donate via Cash App at $ just another messenger. That is scrolling across the bottom of your screen there. Now, as I said, subscribe, like, and share on YouTube. Our page is growing. We're very excited about that. Those numbers, let's continue to get those numbers up. And you can go at Just Another Messenger on YouTube. Now, follow us on Jam. On X at JAM _404 podcast. That information is scrolling across the bottom as well. And if you'd like to contact us, you can contact us via email at justanothermessengerpodcast@gmail.com. So I'm going to click this. I'm going to keep this donate page up. I'm going to keep that up throughout the entire broadcast episode. I'd like to thank our donors who continue to support us as we continue to grow the channel. So I would like to personally thank everyone who's contributed their donations to the channel and as we continue to grow. So let's go ahead and get this started because I'm very excited about the information that we're going to present here this evening. Now let's look at this. We're going to deal with this. We're going to deal with crime bills, slavery, legacy, and the prison boom. Now, how are we going to do that, Tamara? We're going to explore the shocking connections between the 13th Amendment, the 1994 and the 1996 crime bills, as well as America's mass incarceration. We're going to connect the dots with all that information with December the 1st pardons of Hunter Biden. And we're going to show how all that information is interconnected. Okay. Now, this episode, we're going to dive into how these historical loopholes in abolition as well as modern politics perpetuates the systematic inequalities. We're going to do that. We're going to uncover these roots of today's prison industrial complex and how it impacts marginalized communities, like I said, Black and brown communities. And so continue to stick with us, join us, and help us unfold and unpack this information as we connect the dots between slavery's legacy, legislative actions, as well as the ongoing fight for justice in the United States. So let's do that. Let's get started with that information right now. All right. So let's look at this. The views, opinions, and thoughts are the protective expression of Tamara L. for storytelling and educational purpose, and does not provide statutory counseling for any United States color of law jurisdictional proceedings. So we had to get that out there. All right. Now let's look at what happened here. Let's look at this pardon. I'm going to say pardon me. So, Miss Biden, President Biden said, pardon me as I do this. We're going to pay very close attention to these dates. We're going to pay very close attention to words and terminology, because we're going to you have to dissect this and understand what you're looking at. Okay. Now, the Biden administration justified the decision to pardon Hunter Biden by arguing means, that's another word for injustice, that Hunter was selectively and unfairly prosecuted. All right. And that it was necessary to protect his son from the incoming Trump administration. Now, the pardon covers from January the 1st of 2014 to December the 1st of 2024. That is a 10-year span. And we're going to go into the understanding of that 10-year span, because I know in mainstream media, they have said it is a blanket. It's a blanket. It's more than just a blanket of time span. So we're going to get into the understanding of that, and which includes Hunter Biden's time on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian gas company for which he's faced scrutiny from the Trump administration in the past. All right. Now, let's look at this pardon. This pardon is President Biden is able to exercise this pardonability based off Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the United States Constitution. And let's look at it as it's read. I'm going to see if we can get that. Let's look at it in its entirety. It reads, it's an executive grant of clemency, and it's a Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, to all to whom these presents shall come greetings. Be it known that this day I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, pursuant to my powers under Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution, has granted unto Robert Hunter Biden a full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed on or may have committed or taken part in doing. Now let's unpack this. Let's unpack the wording on this pardon. Then this is how it's going to make sense. I want you to stay with me. You got to stay with me as we unpack this, because you're going to be like, oh my God, this is going to take us down the rabbit hole right here. Now let's unpack this. Let's back up. For these offenses against the United States, which he has committed on or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January the 1st of 2024 to 2014, through December the 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged, or prosecuted, included any that have resulted in conviction by Special Counsel David C. Wise in docket number 1:23 CR. You got that number in the United States District Court for the District of Delaware, and in dockets number 223. You see that number in the United States District Court for the Central District of California. In testimony whereof I have unto sign my name and cause the pardon to be recorded with the Department of Justice. Keep that in mind. The date, the ability to be the granting authority, which is the Constitution. All right. The granting authority is in the Constitution of Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1. All right. The time frame of the date, January the 1st, 2014 through December the 1st of 2024. All right. And it say, cause the pardon to be recorded with the Department of Justice. All right. So this occurred done at the city of Washington this first day of December in the year of the Lord 2024, and of the independence of the United States in the 249th. All right. Joseph R. Biden. Look at the seal to say Department of Justice. All right. Let's look at this. All right. This is why I talked about the dates is very important. And a lot of times people don't, this is a point where people don't even know what this means when we talked about this. And I'm just going to give a little drum roll. Let me just unpack that part for you when I explain this to you, and I'm going to move this from the top. This is what you call king's power. This king power was incorporated into the Constitution. It's called nunc pro tunc. Nunc pro tunc is a Latin term meaning now for then. Now for then. This is how they were able to incorporate the time period of January the 1st, 2014 to December the 1st of 2024. It is called nunc pro tunc, now for then. Wow. Can this be exercised at any time? Judiciary injustice? Absolutely. As you can see, it's being exercised now, but people don't even know what they're looking at. All right. Let's look at this. Nunc pro tunc is a Latin term meaning now for then. Generally, this refers to any action taken by a court that applies retroactively to correct an earlier ruling. Usually the term is used relating to the procedural devices of nunc pro tunc amendments or nunc pro tunc judgments. The purpose of nunc pro tunc actions is understood as correcting the judicial record to remedy clerical issues, clear errors, or prevent injustice. Now, wasn't that the argument? Wasn't that the argument that President Biden states to correct the injustice of the court that was set up against his son, Hunter Biden, and he wanted to also stop and prevent any proceedings that could come forth in the future from the Trump administration. So they exercise nunc pro tunc amendment. That's what you're looking at. Nunc pro tunc. You have to know what you're looking at when you're looking at the media and you're hearing things. You have to understand these things. All right. Let's look at that. All right. It say clear errors or prevent injustice, and in doing so, more clearly reflects the original intentions of the court. As a result, nunc pro tunc amendments and judgments are treated as if they were made on the dates of the original amendment or judgment. Now, you can look this definition up. I took this straight from Wex definitions. It was lastly updated August of 2023. This is what you call king's power. Now, remember, in the pardon, it said by the order of DOJ. Keep in mind, anything that's dealing with pardon, clemency, computations of time, it goes through the Department of Justice. So it wasn't that President Biden made the decision to just pardon him. The decision first had to go through Department of Justice. Department of Justice had to do whatever, and they had to make the recommendation of yes, he qualifies for the ability to be pardoned. And who knows, there could be a lot of political things behind that, so this is what happened. The DOJ in this political discrimination, they was like, okay, we're going to go ahead and exercise non pro tunc. We're going to go ahead and exercise and recommend the pardon for Hunter Biden. And then at that time, we'll go ahead and send this off to the presidency, because what we have to look at, just the week prior to that, there was a House congressional meeting in which Hunter Biden and his attorney did not show up to. Now, everyone should have seen that handwriting on the wall, because if you never show up, if you're subpoenaed to be a grand jury, especially a House congressional hearing, and you're subpoenaed to testify, and you don't show up, your attorney doesn't show up, you may have proxied your attorney to show up for you, and if you don't show up, there is a warrant for your arrest that must be taken out. So when that a warrant for Hunter Biden arrest did not come up when he didn't show up, I already knew in my mind that there was something going on behind the scenes. I know it probably take other people a minute to catch up, but I already saw the handwriting on the wall that something was going on, because you cannot just arbitrarily not show up for a subpoena to a House congressional hearing in which you have to testify. That's not how it works. All right. So this is what can happen. Like if the clemency would have been denied, this is where the DOJ power derives their power from. And this is what would have happened. They would have stated under 28 CFR subsection 1.8, notification of denial of clemency. Section B, it said, except in cases in which a sentence of death has been imposed, listen to this. It say, whenever the Attorney General recommends that the President deny a request for clemency, which means the Attorney General is the one that's making the recommendation for the clemency, for the pardon, and the President does not disapprove or take other action with respect that adverse recommendation within 30 days, which means that when Hunter Biden, as I said, when Hunter Biden didn't show up, they're like, okay, you guys have the House committee hearing, you guys set the time period from that, go ahead, okay, because we've already put in for the pardon, which means that if the president, once the DOJ submitted the information over to the president, he has 30 days to either accept or reject the recommendations from the Department of Justice. Now, let's just say if it was a rejection, if they rejected it and the president did not say anything, it's called silence, means acquiescence of the law. If the president didn't come back with a rebuttal, a veto, the rejection or modification, silence would have mean it stood, which means that the rejection would have stood. He would have been rejected the pardon. So when the DOJ recommended in favor of the pardon and it's sent over to the president's, even if the president didn't sign it or not, it stood, because the DOJ is the one who makes the call. Help you understand that. All right. After the date is submission to him, it shall be presumed that the president concurs in that adverse recommendation of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General shall so advise the petitioner and close the case. That's not what happened. The DOJ granted the pardon, and even if it sat there, like I said, even if it sat there, it would have went into effect. So the DOJ is the one who actually pardons, make the recommendations for the pardons. All right. This is what we call a red herring. What is a red herring, Tamara? A red herring is it's called a distraction. Let's just look at this. It say, I am here to distract you. What is distracting us? What is going on? Like we seeing something, we seeing one thing over to the left, and there's something we seeing. Okay, This is going on to the left. What's going on to the right? So it's like, okay, what is really taking place here? What are we really looking at here? What is really happening here? Let's look at let's look at the red herring. This is related to the dates of January the 1st, 2014 to December the 1st of 2024. This is a distraction. During the expansion of the United States, there was a statement saying, "Go west, young man." Well, this is an expansion over in between Ukraine and Russia. So I call this "Go East, young man." And this is the red herring distraction with NATO's expansion and the Soviet Union. Now, this occurred during the negotiations for the reunification of Germany. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev agreed to allow a united Germany to join NATO under the assurance that NATO would not expand 1 inch eastward beyond Germany borders. However, this assurance was verbal and not codified in a formal treaty, leading to disputes over its validity. Now, after the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, NATO began expanding into Eastern Europe, incorporating countries like Poland, Hungary, and the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, much to Russia's dismay. Now, what does Hunter Biden have to do with this? Let's fast forward. Let's pick this thing up. This is what Hunter Biden has to do with this. Now, Hunter Biden, he was also a board member of Burisma Holding, which is a Ukrainian natural gas company. He served on the board of directors from 2014 to 2019. So that is why in that pardon, it stated has yet to be convicted of. He knew some stuff coming down the pipeline. Let's be honest. That is the red herring here. So that's why they had to back the date all the way up to, because it's not only the implication of Hunter Biden, it could be the implication of Joe Biden as well. But even though the pardon was granted, one of the things that the pardon could also do is it could deny Hunter Biden's ability to plead the fifth if they go ahead and move forward, we're calling him forward to testify. If they subpoena him, you can't claim it'll be kind of difficult for him to plead the fifth on something that he's been pardoned for. He hadn't been convicted of it. So it's going to be difficult to say, "Oh, I plead the fifth on the grounds it may incriminate me." How it may incriminate you when you weren't convicted of it. So which means he would have to testify. It may have to throw some people under the bus, So I don't know. Now look at this. His position raised concerns about potential conflicts of interest given his father's role as vice president at that time. Now this was going on for quite a while. And also he had dealings with a Chinese conglomerate, CEFC, China Energy. Now Hunter Biden engaged in business dealings with CEFC, which has ties to the Chinese government. Now it states also that entities controlled by Hunter Biden or his uncle, James Biden, receive approximately $4.8 million from CEFC over 14 months starting in 2027. Now, I'm just giving some contextual information to modern day's events. I'm giving contextual information to modern day's events. Now, we're going to make the connection between crime bills, slavery's legacy, as well as the mass incarceration. Now, this is going to go full circle. So let's roll. Let's get into this right here. Let's get into slavery's legacy and mass incarceration. All right, let's get into that because this right here is going to pave the way to have an understanding of how these past events continue to plague us. All right, let's go here. Now, let's look at the foundation of this. The foundation of crime bills, slavery's legacy, and mass incarceration deals with Emancipation Proclamation. Let's look at the date, January the 1st, 1863. Write that down. We're going to have to keep this in content to have a full circle understanding. This amendment, it states that it abolished. It was for the abolishment of slavery nationwide, freeing an estimated 4 million enslaved people. It nullified earlier laws, which mean nullified, voided, no longer legal in the statutory codes, laws, and ordinance, the Fugitive Slave Act, and the Three-Fifths Compromise. And it rendered previous state laws supporting slavery unconstitutional. So, which means this Emancipation Proclamation of January the 1st, 1863 was supposed to be for the abolishment of slavery nationwide. Let's go into some etymology. Remember, I stated earlier about the basis of a civilization. It deals with the God principle, it deals with language, it deals with law, and it deals with the people itself. Let's look at the etymology of emancipation. Emancipation is the fact, the process of being set free from legal, social, or political restrictions, liberation, the freeing of someone from slavery. It comes from the Latin word emancipatium, the past participle emancipatus, transferred as property from the verb. So you got a past participle, plus you have the verb form, which is action, emancipare, from which means to go out, plus emancipatum, slave, out of slavery. So that is the meaning of emancipation, to come out of slavery, the etymology of slavery, to come out of slavery. Now look at this. Now, which means if the Emancipation Proclamation should have been for the abolishment of slavery, that would mean that the 13th Amendment was not even necessary. So what is the point of having this 13th Amendment if you have a proclamation signed by the president abolishing slavery? There's no need to come back 2 years later and now have an amendment to the Constitution that deals with slavery at all. But let's look at it. Let's look at the continuation to the loop back. Let's look at that. The 13th Amendment ratified December the 6th, 1865. That's like 2 years later. What are we doing here? Why are we talking about slavery 2 years later? I thought your Emancipation Proclamation abolished it in 1863. Why in 2 years later, now you're creating an amendment that said neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except let's underline the word except, circle it, stick a pen in it, stick a knife in it, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So this is saying that the enforcement of slavery can occur under the guise of a crime. So we can loop you back into slavery if you commit a crime and you are extradited into our prison system. All right. It say the 13th Amendment's enforcement powers have been used to prohibit peonage and involuntary servitude. The Supreme Court has interpreted the term involuntary servitude to mean a condition where a victim is forced to work through physical resistance, injury, or coercion. This is still a violation, but this violation is still hard to work through it, to get it removed, to get it nullified. All right. Now, this is the heartbeat. The 13th Amendment is the heartbeat of slavery. It keeps slavery alive in the jurisdiction of the United States. It keeps it alive. Let's look at some of these loopholes of the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment created what you call black codes. Now, the black codes was a series of laws such as loitering, vacancy, or not having proof of employment enacted in the southern states after the Civil War during the Reconstruction era of 1865 to 1877. These laws aimed to restrict the freedoms of newly freed, I'm going to say Negroes, Moors, Indian Americans, maintain a cheap labor force. Now, all those are misnomers names. Let's get that, except for Moorish. That is a nationality. Now, maintain a cheap labor force and reassert white supremacists in a post-slavery economy. Now, to address this, the black codes were designed to control the movement, behavior, and economic opportunities of black people. And I put that in bold for a reason. And I'm going to always put up air quotes for that. And I'm putting up air quotes for that because the term black is a racial construct. Black people effectively replicating conditions of slavery under a legal framework. All right. Now, it also, another loophole that the 13th Amendment has allowed to usher in is what you call convict leasing. Now, states lease prisoners, leased out prisoners, and they continue to lease out prisoners today to private businesses for labor. Prisoners worked in brutal conditions in mines, fields, and factories, often under conditions worse than slavery. And this convict leasing still goes on today. I know someone personally who, I'm gonna just give a quick story. I know someone personally that was in prison, and they were doing like a 10-year bid, right? And they took a job. I mean, in out in the market world, the free market world, this would be a very high-end prestige job to have. I'm not gonna say the company name, but it would be a very high-end prestige company. But this particular person was in prison, and they was working for this particular company. They worked themselves up to a higher pay, because the pay is kind of like pennies on the dollar. So they worked themselves up to like making almost like $1 an hour. Yeah, $1 an hour in the prison. I mean, they were literally making seats for the airplane. And then after their sentencing, they attempted to go in the market after doing this for like 8 years. They attempted to go and apply for the same position that they saw online that they were doing for 8 years for $1 an hour. They attempted to apply for the same position in the free market. And this is the funny part. They were denied. Their application was denied. And they said, because you're a felon. Because you are a felon, you're denied this job. But yet, as a felon in the prison, you're able to work that job for $1 an hour. The hypocrisy of it. So convict leasing still goes on. It's live and well today. All right. Now, states profited and still profit from this system, creating economic incentives to arrest and convict individuals, particularly Black, and I'm gonna say in brown people, air quotes. All right. Now, this is what happened back in the late 19th and early century. Chain gangs. Convicted individuals were used for public infrastructure projects like building roads and railroads. Now, I know a lot of those jobs are very hard to get. The road work, the infrastructure jobs, and a lot of times those jobs help they place a lot of families in great economic position. So when you have a lot of these states and private prisons receiving these particular type of contracts, and they're working in tandem, that okay, the prison will give these jobs to the prison population, but however, you have a free society, and then the free society is wondering why they can't have a market-free job that provides a cost of living that be able to take care of it, as opposed to having to work 2 and 3 jobs, because you're only able to find a job that's below the cost of living or livable wage. So this is why a lot of those jobs are no longer available in the free market, because a lot of those jobs that are in the free market that would have paid 30, 35, $40 an hour, those jobs are given to private prisons and they're being paid 50 cents and $1 an hour. Yeah. Now, chain gang served also as visible and dehumanizing representation of how the loophole perpetuated the forced labor. And there's still a form of chain gang as well. Let's not get that twisted, because let's keep in mind, when you driving down some highways and some particular mornings, you will see a line of people with garbage bags, and they're picking up all the rodents off the road, the trash off the roads, and things of that nature. That is a form of chain gang. So just because the chains are not on the feet, the chains have now been moved from the feet to the mind, because the mental is now saying, if you run, there's going to be implications for running, and so it's no longer the shackles on the feet, it's the shackles on the mind. So the chain gang still exists today. All right. Now let's look at this historical content. This is the lovely President Joseph Biden. Now keep in mind, Joseph Biden been in this he's been in this game for a long time, this legal game. He's been in Congress, and as a vice president and a president. He's been at this thing for a long time. And has he been great at it? No. He should go down as one of the worst statesmen to ever exist, in my opinion. And I'm just gonna let my face be known. He should go down as one of the worst statesmen that ever exists. He should. And we're gonna show you why. Because it's laced in racism. Joe Biden's entire career has been laced in racism, and it's still laced in racism, because his actions of the pardon of his son, it shows that he is willing to continue to keep the line at bay when it comes down to Black and brown people versus, as they say, what's this famous line say in here? Beyond the pale. So if you're within the pale, there's a different set of rules if you're within the pale. But if you're beyond the pale, and beyond the line, there's a separate set of rules for you as well. And Joe Biden has been laced in this for over 50 years. And I'm just going to have to show you this. This is the track record. And what did he mean by beyond the pale? The phrase originated from the term pale, which referred to a boundary or enclosure. It comes from the Latin word palus, meaning stake, which involved in the idea of a fenced or marked area. Now, in medieval and earlier modern history, areas under English control in Ireland, Scotland, or Russia was referred to as the Pale. Now, beyond those boundaries was considered wild, lawless, or uncivilized by those within the Pale. So, yeah, now this is Joe Biden's 1993 crime speech, and I'm going to pull that up.
Consensus is A, we must take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter, or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now, not out of a liberal instinct for love, brother, and humanity, although I think that's a good instinct, but for simple, pragmatic reasons. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. Beyond the pale. And it's a sad commentary on society. We have no choice but to take them out of society. And the truth is, we don't very well know how to rehabilitate them at that point. That's the sad truth. You're looking at the fellow who was one of the primary architects of the Sentencing Commission. You know what the basic premise of the Sentencing Commission is? I know the presiding officer knows. It was the first time in 80 years we rejected the notion that the condition of sentencing must be related to how long it would take to rehabilitate. I'm the guy that said rehabilitation, when it occurs, we don't understand it and notice it. And even when we notice it and we know it occurs, we don't know why. So you cannot make rehabilitation a condition for release. That's why in our system, the federal system, you serve 85% of your time. I remember when it was going on, when I was making these arguments in the late 70s, they used to call it Biden's same time for the same crime provision. It's a shame, but we don't know how to rehabilitate. But there is a consensus, and I will cease. A, we must make the streets safer. I don't care why someone is a malfactor in society. I don't care why someone is antisocial. I don't care why they become a sociopath. We have an obligation to cordon them off from the rest of society, try to help them, try to change their behavior. That's why we do in this bill. We have drug treatment and we have other treatments to try to deal with it, but they are in jail.
All right, you got that. He said they are in jail. Socialize. Yeah, you got that? Socialize. Yes, but in jail. They are beyond the pale. I don't care what their background is. I don't care what conditions that we created for them. I don't care what marginalized community they live in. They are beyond the pale. Ugh, this makes me sick. Let's look at this. Here's another one right here. Clinton, in his 1994 and 1996 crime bills. Now, Clinton was running a campaign called Putting People First campaign. And one of these stark advocates of his campaign was his wife, Hillary Clinton. And we're going to get into the atrocities of what she thought about the people that was beyond the pale as well. Now, Clinton's crime bill ushered in millions. It created millions. It created a massive boom in the prison system. It created, oh man, I know those people who had stock in, I'm quite sure those people who had stock in the prison industrial complex, the private prisons. Now, it from my understanding, this bill, it earmarked $14 billion to increase the prison population. Like, just get it ready. They're going to be coming. So just get it ready. They're going to be coming. That's what the 1996 crime bill did. It ushered in, it created a whole new city called the prison industrial complex. Let's look at the key provisions of the 1994 crime bill. It created mandatory minimums, 3-strike laws, and funding for prisons. The 1996 crime bill's impact on welfare reform and increased penalties for nonviolent offenses. Nonviolent offenses got grouped into a felonious act where it was once misdemeanors act. Now, these bills disproportionately affected Black and Brown communities on a massive scale. Now, let's look at, we talk about our elected officials, and we talked about, our elected officials and things of that nature, the Black caucus and the this and that. Hogwash, crap. Al Sharpton and I mean, I had to like literally take a nap trying to put this episode together because it is just sickening to the core. When you really digest this, it's sickening to the core, and the people needs to really, really wake up and get involved. And I'm just going to keep showing you this. I'm going to keep showing you this and connecting these dots between crime bills, slavery's legacy, and mass incarceration. All right. And show how that pardon of December the 1st plays into the historical content of this. We're going to keep going here. We're going to keep showing you this. This is what Clinton stated. The crime bill in 1994 is critical to the success of the community policing. It provides funds for 100,000 new police in communities of all sizes. We're already a third of the way there, and I challenge the Congress to finish the job. Let us stick with the strategy that's working and keep the crime rate coming down. The crime rate didn't go down. Community policing also requires bonds of trust between citizens and police. I ask all Americans to respect and support our law enforcement officers. All right, now let's look at this. It states a majority of the Congressional Black Caucus voted for the bill, and a Gallup poll survey in 1994 found that 58% of African Americans supported the crime bill compared to 49% of white Americans. It's like we get to a point. It's like we get to a point and we beg for our continuous oppression. We beg for our continuous oppression. I mean, just beg for it. No thought. And I remember reading something today that said that our trauma has created collective amnesia. The trauma has created collective amnesia. And I say it's time for us to wake up, remember, reclaim, and restore. Now let's look at Hillary. Hillary riding Clinton. Hillary riding Clinton. Let's look at Hillary. Bring them to heel. She said, we would call super predators. She called us super predators. That's what we call super predators. We have to bring them to heel. And of all the people, look who she has holding a sign. This is the deliberate marketing. Like this is like in your face. Because of all those people that's there, somebody else couldn't hold a sign. Who are you talking about to bring the heel? Oh yeah, beyond the pale. That's who you're talking about to bring the heel. Beyond the pale. All right. Let's look at these constitutional provisions. The U.S. Constitution indirectly addresses felonies in Article 4, Section 2, where it provides for the extradition. Extradition. Did I say that right? Yes. The extradition of individuals, and I underline that for a reason, where it provides for the extradition of individuals charged with treason, felony, or other crimes. Let me ask you then. Let's query me this. Query me this, Emra. Let's query me this. Yeah, we're gonna do a Kamala today and get a whole bunch of different languages. Query me this, Emra. Yeah. So, if the Constitution say, Edmond, if the U.S. Constitution indirectly addresses felonies in Article 4, Section 2, where it provides for the extradition, the extradition means removal of individuals. Where did they send them to? What country? What countryman? What country did they go to, man? Uh-huh. Who got extradited? And where did they get extradited to? Because there's over 2 million felonies that are still sitting in Americas. So, which means that these are the autochthonous, aboriginal, native, indigenous people to the land. You can't extradite them anywhere, man. They can't go anywhere because they're already home, Dorothy. They're already home. So you extradited them to a prison cell, prisoners of war, a racial war. That's what they're extradited to. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. So if you are charged with treason, a felony, or other crimes, you're supposed to get extradited. So the prison system is the new landmass of the United States of prison industrial complex. That's the new landmass. Let's look at this. This comes from the Innocent Project. This shows the mass incarceration trends here. Let's look at this mass incarceration trends. We're going to set our eyes on the time period of the crime bills of 1994, 1996. Let's look at this. At that time, let's look at the population of the crime. So you mean to tell me of 63,262 crimes have been committed at that time period, 1995. Oh, and after the crime bill, look, it just get like the Wild Wild West, the Wild Wild West. I mean, it just skyrockets. Look at this. I mean, it just take off. This is like somebody's bank account right here to just, oh, happy days. I mean, they were happy. Look at that. I mean, if this had to be the stock market, if we had to say this is a stock market, we have to use this correlation. And we take this correlation of this chart and put this chart with the stock market trend of the prison industrial complex and the money that was made, the prison industrial complex that we're making from 1991 to now. Look, I'm pretty sure that will be millions of dollars. You can calculate that into millions of dollars being made to the prison industrial complex after the 1994-1996 crime bill went into effect. Millions of dollars. Now, this was due to the evolution of the felony category. Let's look at the evolution of that. Let's look at the 18th century felonies were primarily violent crimes. That's it. A felony was a violent crime, which means that you had to it was a violence against someone. It was which consisted of murder, rape, and arson, which that was a property. So it was a violent crime. So punishment often included execution, corporal punishment, or long-term imprisonment. This was the 18th century. So we talk about 18th century, we talk about like in 1700s. So the 19th century, 1800, as the legal system expanded, it added property crimes such as burglary, larceny, and fraud were added to the list of felonies. Now, state governments began creating distinct penal systems to differentiate the punishment of felons from other offenders. Now, let's look at this 20th century. Now, this deals with the 1900s. Now, this deals with the 1994-96 crime bill. Now, look at this. Now, this 20th century, the definition of felonies broadened to include non-violent crimes, victimless crimes. Now, no one was hurt, no one was injured. A victimless crime now, such as drug trafficking. Now, when I say no one was hurt, I'm talking about physical hurt, such as killing, attempted murder, rape, things of that nature. Drug trafficking, that's a whole nother beast right there. Communities are hurt. Embezzlement, companies, banks are hurt. That's the whole different side of the ball of the track, and other white collar crimes. All right. Now, the growth of the prison system and the introduction of sentencing guidelines created more uniformity in how felons was treated legally. Now, let's look at that. Now, this deals with the evolution of felony. This creates the ushering in of the 1996 crime bill right here. Now, the expansion of felonies, particularly during the war on drugs in the 1980s and the 1990s, contributed to the expansion of the U.S. prison population. Nonviolent offenders, usually those convicted of drug-related felonies, make up significant proportion of incarcerated individuals today. The label of felony has become a powerful tool of social exclusion, disproportionately affecting marginalizing communities. When they say marginalized communities, they're talking about Black and brown communities. That's what they're talking about, Black and brown communities. When they say marginalized communities, they put you at a marginal minority. That's what they're talking about. Let's get that straight. Hope you enjoy my humor for today. Now, let's look at these collateral consequences that occur. Let's look at that. And when I say collateral consequences, this is what you call kicking the can down the road, which means that you were charged or either you pleaded, which means please prosecute me. They didn't have enough evidence, but just please prosecute me. That's what a plea deal means. All right. So, which means the collateral consequence, which means you got charged, you accepted the plea, you accepted the time, you did your time, or you did your probation, you paid your restitution, you satisfied the requirements of the justice system. All right. Kicking the can down the road. Now, once you come into society, now society puts you in the prison system now. Because now society say, oh, you're a felon. Jesus was a felon too. Look it up. Read the Bible. He was one too. Yeah. Now, collateral consequences. Voting rights. Felons in many states lose their right to vote, sometimes permanently. What else happened? We're just going to go down the road. What can happen? Employment barriers. Convictions often result in difficulties obtaining jobs due to stigma or legal restrictions. Legal restrictions could be such as certain licensing, such as license means permission, which means the state gives you permission to operate in this employment capacity that requires a license. What requires a licensing? Barbering, working in a barbershop, a cosmetology. Now, these are innate abilities that are now taken from your innate ability to now is being licensed, is being leaned upon. Now, they were trying to do that also in natural hair, and that came up under scrutiny, and also people went to court and fought that for just natural braiding hair. They was trying to get that to be licensed as well. What are some other things is licensed, such as being an attorney, a mortician, a caretaker, a caregiver, things like that. They want you to have license to be a caregiver. So certain particular jobs and things of that nature that the state have deemed an adjuster, the state have deemed it requires licensing to be able to do. This has created collateral consequences for people who have served their time, satisfied the justice requirement. Now you get out into society, and now society say, we're going to place you in on incarceration as well. Yeah, that's what happened. So, housing discrimination. Felons frequently face barriers to securing housing, including restrictions in public housing program. Firearm rights. Federal law prohibits convicted felons from obtaining and possessing firearms. Now, let's keep in mind, what was one of the charges that Hunter Biden had? It was the application of the firearm that he stated that he was not engaging in recreational drugs or anything when he applied for his license, and that was false because it was turned out that he was a known crackhead. He was an all crackhead, which means that he's a person, impaired person, and he's probably not a logical person to be carrying a firearm, because an illogical person carrying a firearm can definitely wreak havoc on some things. So that was that was one of the charges that Hunter Biden was charged with, the application of the firearm. Yeah, he pleaded guilty to that as well. So here's another one of the collateral consequences that could occur. Social stigma. Labeling as a felony can carry lifelong social consequences even after sentences are served. People like to say, oh, this person is a felon. This person is a felon. This person is a felon. Your Jesus was a felon. Your Jesus was deemed felonious. He was persecuted and he was executed. So stop it. Stop it. Every saint is a sinner, and every sinner it was a saint. Now, pardon me, please. Here's your get out of jail free card. So Biden took the pardon power and used that get out of jail free card and said his son was not going to be subject to collateral consequences. My son is not going to be subject to collateral consequences. I don't care what y'all say. My son ain't going to be subject to that. Your son or daughter could be subject to collateral consequences, but mine ain't. Because I'm going to take this power and I'm going to abuse it, and I'm going to take my son, my crackhead son, and I'm taking him home. He didn't care about all the other people who had went through their trial and their plea and found guilty or pleaded guilty and took the sentencing of the justice system and have to deal with the social stigma and the collateral consequences of enfranchisement in society. Yeah, that was not going to apply to his son. So that's why I said earlier that Joe Biden should get the award of the worst statesman of the year, of the century, of the world. The worst. Because it shows the racism at play, and it shows its foundation and how it still goes on today. Call to action. We are at our hour mark, and I'm glad I got this out my system. What is our call to action? Justice reform now, end mass incarceration. What are we to do here? We must have we the people power. We must have we the people power. And we got to drop some music on that. Hit that like button, increase that like button, share, subscribe to the channel. Please do that. Go to at justanothermessenger.com. Follow us on X at jam _404 podcast. Contact us at justanothermessengerpodcast@gmail.com. Now, before we get into this, we the people power, let's get into that. We the people power. We must have advocacy and activism. This is our call to action. We must support and create community-based organization working towards systematic change. We must reawaken from the ancestral trauma that has caused collective amnesia. We must wake up, reclaim, and restore. We must educate ourselves on policy making and create policy changes. One of the things we can do that by creating PACs, which is a political action committees, which are 527 tax exempt organization. We must organize, we must unite, we must get to work like now. We must do this. We must create now. This is one of the bills I have been trying to communicate. Now, if Angela Staden get this video, Angela King Stanton. I love her in Atlanta. If she get this video, this is one of the things I'm going to try to reach out with other people in community action-based programs in this Atlanta jurisdiction. If someone reach out to, I've been trying to reach out to Senator Warnock, constituency office. They have worked with me on some things and still going to be working with me on some other things. I have reached out to Senator Osloff, constituency office. I have not heard back from Senator Osloff. I've heard back from Senator Warnock constituency office, but I have not heard back from Senator Osloff constituency office. And I have not heard back from my House district representative. His name is Hank, and it looked like from looking at his website, he's been in office too long and it's time for him to go. Have not heard back from his office as well. Have not heard back, and it's been going on for over 6 months. Now, I've been working with Senator Warnock, and I have to make another schedule so I can sit down. Now, this is one of the bills in which I'm looking to help get sponsored, and it is called Sucker. Yeah, Sucker. Stop the utilization of collateral consequences on Americans. This is one of the bills that I'm currently writing. I've been writing this bill now for the past 2 years because I didn't understand. I had to learn about how to write a bill. I had to look at some legal precedencies. So I've been digging in the papyrus and legal briefs and things of that nature. This is one of the bills that I'm hoping to get sponsored by, if not Senator Warnock, one of these senators out here in one of these states. Sucker, stop the utilization of collateral consequences on Americans. And what are those collateral consequences? That Joe Biden made sure that his son Hunter Biden was not a casualty to voting rights, employment barrier, housing discrimination, firearm rights, and social stigma. Okay, he don't care about the social. He got his part. He got his get out of jail free card, so he can care less about the social stigma. He can go on to being a crackhead again for all he care. He don't care. But Joe Biden made sure his son was not a victim to collateral consequence, and we need to make sure all the people who have victimless crimes, who have served their time, the justice served their time. We shouldn't have to go through a pardon process because you have completed the requirements of the justice requirements that said that you must complete. The society should not continue to keep you in society prison. So this is one of the bills that I've been working on for 2 years, and hopefully when I sit down with Senator Warnock in Atlanta, I will have this information ready to rock and roll, and hopefully it can make a difference for all Americans, because this plagues America. It's like a bad virus. And this is the continuation of how the crime bills, how slavery, mass incarceration keeps you mass incarcerated into society and keep you from it creates economic disparities. It keeps you marginalized and keep you out of the ability to be able to rise up without having to sometimes probably go do something illegal again and risk going back to jail and being back into that's what you call the recidivism rate. That's why the recidivism rate occur and exists, because society have to keep you in prison. And so people say, hell, I might as well just go back to damn jail if I can't make money out here in the free market world. So that's what we're dealing with right there. So I'm looking to exercise my people power and create the bill Sucker. Stop the utilization of collateral consequences on Americans. Now, tune in every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Just Another Message. We have updated that logo here to more realistic things. Now, keep in mind, we are more than just talk. As we said with Just Another Messenger, this is what we do here. We are deep diving every week. We're going to deep dive into the past. We're going to examine the philosophies, the systems, and the decisions that continue to influence our world today. Now, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Keep in mind that we're not monetizing on YouTube. We are new. This is our 7th episode. Very excited about this 7th episode. And like I said, please donate and give. I thank all our sponsors, people who have continued to donate and sponsor and support us. I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. We're in the process of trying to build out these systems, as well as work with getting in front of working with our current senators to get some things in action, as well as building a PAC, a political action committee, so we can get involved and do the work progress. I don't want to be 100 years in somebody club and still talking about this and still talking about that. That's a sideline cheerleader. We're not doing the time of sideline cheerleading is over. It's time to get in the game. Let's fight, let's fight, let's go. Thank you very much for tuning in to Just Another Message. Like I said, every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Donate on Cash App at $ Just Another Messenger. Email us at justanothermessengerpodcast@gmail.com. I bid you farewell this evening, and thank you very much, and have a good evening.